Okay, today's interview is with BillCarty. He's the Director of Card Services at the NewSchool. Thanks for joining us, Bill. Can you tell me about your role at the NewSchool?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the Director of Card Services, and I deal with the student, faculty, and staff side of the cards. My office generates and controls all of the cards that are issued, that are replaced, and all of the utilization of the card. We use the card for a variety of functions here. It's physical access to all of our buildings. We have turnstiles at all of our, we have 23 buildings here in New York City. And actually not at all of them, at most of them, we're just finally bringing in the last phases of getting turnstiles in the remainder of them. We're using a HID dual prox card, and we're using the prox for physical access. And we have we're using the mag stripe for whatever other functions we have. The card is issued to students, faculty, staff, and mainly students. We have about 14,000 cards that are active right now. And the students utilize them for getting in the buildings. They also use them, the residents that we have 2,500 residents on campus, and they use them for access to their buildings and to their rooms. In one of our more modern buildings, or the latest building that we have that we've upgraded, the card gets them in the front door, it gets them into the elevator, onto their floor, and into their room. And the mag stripe is utilized for food service in the cafeterias. It's utilized for printing. It's utilized for fines at our equipment center. It's utilized for our off-campus program, our vending machines, and so on. So the typical college uses you'd have for a card. And that's about what we have as far as the cards go. As I said, it's a HID dual prox. We use Fargo printers, and we issue about 13,000, 14,000 cards a year.
Wow. That's interesting. So it's a dual-use card, so it has the prox on the card as well as the mag stripe.
Right, and it also has a barcode. It's used for library lending. The prox, we have a barcode for library lending. The prox, as I said, is used for physical access. We also share facilities, or we utilize facilities with NYU, and the prox acts over there in their system as well for our student access. And the mag stripe is used for a variety of other things. We have little ancillary things that are going on. We have students at the counseling center will check in, at the medical center will check in, at the registrar's office. It allows them to bring their records up accurately and quickly. So we're utilizing those as well. Up until this year, we were using our cards in the library, but the dorms decided to go with a new library system, and we could not get the carding system in quick enough. So the interim that we have right now is that we've stopped using the mag stripe for cards, but that was again through the I should back up a little bit and say that we use the cards for meal plans here, and we also have a flex spending plan, which is a voluntary plan that we use, and that's used for fines. It's used for certain printers. It's used for our off-campus program, our vending machines, our college store, so on and so forth, and that's a pretty healthy program on campus as well.
Yeah. Do you see any limitations to having a mag stripe and prox card on the same card? And I phrase that terribly. Versus having a smart card, do you see any limitations with the prox dual card?
Well, the thing that we have now, it's an interesting situation where, the standard that everybody's using right now, or that everybody was used to, is the mag stripe. And there's a lot of them out there. So the vendors that we have off campus, they utilize the mag stripe. The cafeteria utilizes the mag stripe, and it could utilize the procs, the procs if we wanted to, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. So no, I think it works for our purposes. All of our rooms, all of our doors in the rooms are all controlled with mag stripes. So it would be a very costly switch over right now to go and redo all of the dorm rooms. Although that probably would be a good idea at some point going into the future. But right now, I think we have like 2,200 doors out there that are controlled by that. So that's an awful lot of money.
Yeah, because you'd have to go to a completely different reader for every single.
Yeah. Also,
door.
And also, the big push that we have, that we hear from everybody, and you'll probably ask about this, is the mobile side of this. So, we're that's always lurking out there. So we don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. Do you think you would leapfrog to that versus? I mean, because I guess the natural progression. I guess the natural progression would be mag stripe to smart card, and then mobile might be a companion to a smart card.
Yeah. Well, the smart card, we investigated that. We've never utilized it. The chip card was mainly for security, and the prox is working for us. We're not having any issues. And it's surprising, we hear about all of the cards that are being cloned and other things. And fortunately, we haven't had any issues whatsoever with that. We've had maybe 2 or 3 cards that got into the wrong hands that we identified, but we really haven't run into any issues running on running just on the mag stripes, what we have right now.
What do you do in the case of a card getting into the wrong hands?
Well, it depends how it happens. If a student gives his or her card to somebody else, and we find out about it, we report them to security. In the case where we had a little bit of fraud, we had a student who left school early in the semester and handed the card to her RA and said, "Here, turn this in for me, please." And then 3 months later, the parent called up and said, "Doesn't my kid get she got a refund from her room? How about the meal plan?" And we found that the kid was using it the entire time, and there's no money left. Well, that was pretty easy to track down because we have everything on camera, and we tracked that one down. And we've had, the system works. If a person loses their card, they come in and get another card because they can't move on campus without having a card. So once they come in, we electronically shred the other card so it can't be used for anything. And so it's and since they can't move on campus, you can't get into your classes, you can't get into your dorms, you can't do anything. So and the guards, once the semester is in full swing, the guards will stop the people cold and say, "No, you have to go and get a replacement card." So once we do that, it changes the coding on the cards, and so we don't have any issues like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a bit more about mobile. Going back to that, what are the conversations that you guys are having about mobile?
Well, mobile is something that's out there that everybody wants, that a lot of the companies say they have, but they're kind of closed systems. People are using their cards at Starbucks, but they can't run down the street and use them at Burger King or at a gas station or anything. I know Blackboard is one of the companies that says that they have a mobile application, but that works only on campus. And everybody says they have one, but it's very limited. I think it's something that's coming, but there's no one that's come out with one standard and said, okay, here it is. this is where the industry is going. Apple held on to everything until I think last fall when they finally started to allow some activity on the iPhone. But right now you have NFC versus RFID because of the Android iPhone issue, and I don't know how quickly it's going to happen, but I don't see that there's any one platform out there that that they can say, okay, guys, this is available for you, and you can utilize it every place. I think the anticipation is there from the students, that they'd like to do everything on their phone. And everybody has been saying, yeah, this is what the students expect when we go to conferences, or we're out on our listserv, or we have conversations. They say, well, this is what the students want, and we all know it's coming, but we can't really do anything about it. So, well, and also, but I will tell you that one of the suggestions I'm going to have this next year is that we change from our dual prox card to a CEOS card, which I believe is something that can coexist with mobile. The mobile application, I think, is right now quite an expensive process to go through, because you have a person that can have a phone, they can have a watch, they can have a tablet, or they can have a card. And I don't know that you can force a person to, all right, you're going to use your phone from now on to do everything. Some people may not have a phone. Some people may not want to use a phone. Off campus, I don't know that we have about 30 merchants off campus, and I don't know how attuned they would be to everybody coming in with just a phone. Although I think that's happening more rapidly than the on-campus application, because I have my card on my phone and I can just hover it over things and use my Visa on it. So that's that's something that's probably going to drag this thing into the future. But we have a closed system here. The merchants have a terminal that just accesses our system and takes the money out of the student's account. The student, if a student has an Android, it may be one thing, an iPhone, it may be another, or they have a card because they don't want to use their phone. I think we're a few years away from that, although it's approaching rapidly.
So there's a lot of stakeholders involved, a lot of quote partners that you would have to bring into any kind of upgrade that you do. I'm assuming that they would have a seat at the table. Is it a collaborative decision? Is it administration, the physical security team, you guys? Tell me a little bit about that. What that might look like in the decision-making process.
All of these things currently are driven by what it's going to cost us, and what the cost-benefit situation is right here. We have a new CIO here who came in from IBM, and he really wanted. He's been here just a year now. As a matter of fact, next month he's here a year, and he was really hot on mobile right away. And and then when he heard what was involved with it, he said, "Well, instead of going and having these guys do it and try to buy something, why don't we try to build something?" Well, that went away real quick, because there's so many things that cost, and it's not only a physical, the monetary cost, but it's a cost of personnel and how much time can you use and what are you actually going to get out of it, because our primary function here is not to try to get a mobile application everybody will be happy to use, but it's education. So if everything we have is working, you have to build a real need for that before we're going to drop everything else and start building a mobile application. Plus, all of our partners, stakeholders as you call them, they all have their own little system that they would like you to work within, and it requires that you change some of the things that you're doing. So that's an issue that you have to get all the people on board to to have something that work across the platform, and I know that that's not out there right now.
Yeah, it seems like a big challenge.
Yeah, because everything yeah, everything that we do, if we start going with with in the cafeterias, we have to upgrade our registers. We have to, so then we have multiple technologies there. We have the we'd have mobile applications at the register. We'd have credit cards that are still being offered in the physical form. We have cash. There's so many things that we'd have to do, and that goes right across the board. We have a lot of PCI compliance issues that we're concerned about. About how this thing would work, so we don't find ourselves in violation of any of the rules, or having to create additional work for ourselves because of opening up our network to additional points of access. So there are so many things that play into this, and basically at the end of the day, all we want is the students can get onto campus, they can get fed, they can get into the rooms, they can borrow books, they can do whatever they need to do. And we're not having people out there with torches and pitchforks saying we've got to have a mobile application next week or we're going to burn the place down. So
yeah. I want to kind of return back to something you said in passing about moving to CEOs. Or I think you phrased it, if you're going to mention it. Do you feel you'd be more secure if you went to a CEO's technology, credential technology?
Again, that's what they're saying, that it would be more secure. But the thing is, I also found that if we go to mobile and we have it coexist, we're going to have that, because it won't work with the mobile won't work with dual procs. Yeah. And we don't want to have ourselves, with even an additional step in this process. And also, thinking about this and how cards are utilized and everything. Right now, people are used to having a card in their hand, and a lot of the newer students are used to having a phone in their hand. We're going to have to have multiple credentials out there, and one of the things about the mobile credential is it's a yearly fee. So there's an ongoing fee that we would have that you do not have with the card. When you look at it, every dollar that we have here is accounted for, and we're fighting a lot of times over pennies for these things, and for funding and other things, and they're not looking at spending any more money.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, it's interesting because what I think the average person like myself forgets is that universities are really just small cities or cities, and you have so many of the aspects that are contained within a city, where you usually have your own form of mobility on campus. You have payment structures. Infrastructure all over the place that runs.
Yeah, well, we have a pretty nice app here at the school, and they're kind of playing with this because students use some of it and they don't use some of it. This is a second version of the application we've had out there, and so I don't there's more utilization of the second app, but the industry, the whole industry is moving so rapidly. Who knows just where it's where it's going to land. It's the velocity of change here is just amazing. Yeah.
We've seen it in the last couple of years, just working with HID on the periphery. Okay, what about trends? What trends are you seeing in access control for higher education? You mentioned mobile. Anything else that you see?
Well, we're not really a trendsetter here. I think we go along with the crowd because again, the cost of this infrastructure is so expensive. We have so much invested in it that we're going to have to. There's going to have to be a real business case to make us move to something a lot different. As I said, when we go to any conferences, we talk to any people, they say, well, look, you now have the full version of, they call them digital natives or whatever. These kids, this is the first time that they've never had anything other than a phone, and they're used to doing everything digitally, and this is what they demand. So, so they're all saying, so you have to create a place that's going to, that their expectations are going to be met. But I don't know. I don't know how they would do that. How we would do that. I had a student working for me this summer, this fall. She just left yesterday, actually, and we were talking about banking, and she says, I've never been inside a bank. I do everything on my phone. And which surprised me. She also is an architecture student. I said, well, gee, what are you going to do with all these empty banks out there when people go completely to the phone? And she said, well, we're going to have to repurpose them. And I said, well, boy, you have an interesting job ahead of you, because you're also going to have to repurpose all the empty shopping centers, all the empty stores that we have, retail, because everybody's going to this. But I said, but why are banks still building banks? Yeah, so they have so much money already sunk in this. They just keep doing what they're doing. So I don't know that we're going to see everybody stopping everything and switching over only to mobile, because there's so much that plays into this. We have a lot of software platforms here that interact with each other, and any of the changes that we do creates a lot of work for the IT department, and we're busy enough right now just trying to keep up with the latest things in teaching and what the professors want, and how they and how they view their classroom experience, how the students view their classroom experience. And the whole classroom experience is changing, because it's a lot more collaboration. They're, the way the classrooms are laid out, they're doing it differently. They're all smarter classrooms, so there's a lot of stuff happening, but it's happening quickly. So by the time people wake up and say, okay, I'm going to do this, somebody moved it already.
Yeah. You mentioned that the student that interned for you doing everything on her phone. Do you see that offering mobile access, would that be a benefit in the recruiting side of Canvas?
I really couldn't address that. I think because I have nothing to do with that side of it. So I don't know if that would help at all in recruitment. I mean, it would. I know it just in my town where I live. When you go to the high school, they have a theater that's equal to anything on Broadway. I mean, they have the absolute latest technology because they're using our dollars. And they have, they have so much of the latest everything in the high school. We come here, they come here, everybody comes with a different experience from a different, from what they're used to seeing where they were all over the world. We have a very large international population. I don't know if we could say, okay, folks, you folks in China, you're going to see something you never saw before. Look, we're going to have a complete mobile app here that's going to do everything you expect. We don't know what they have, what they're doing. Europe has been ahead of us with chip technology for years. So you don't. I really don't know how to answer that, but I'm skeptical on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just curious because I think you're right in that mobile is definitely a direction that we're going. And,
it's inevitable.
You can't stop it. Yeah, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And I'm 44, and I do remember phones with rotary dials on them and being wired into the wall, unlike my kids who have never seen one. And as kids get older and they have kids, that that concept of carrying multiple things is kind of going to go away, I think, if everything's on the phone. But I have no knowledge of that other than my opinion. But very interesting on campus. All right, let's see, what else do we have on here that might be right in your wheelhouse? How about what would you like if you had an open checkbook? You could do anything you want. Knowing what you know, what would you do? What would be your perfect scenario in your role or in the physical access on the campus? Money's no object.
If money was no object, I think I would I would offer both card and mobile. But again, it's not only money; it's time. There's a lot of time that would have to be spent investigating this entire thing and putting the right application in. It's really interesting when you think about how long when did Apple drop the iPhone on us? That was in the early 2000s, wasn't it? Or 2006, 2007, something like that. This phenomenon, if you look at what's happened just in the time that people have iPhones in their hand, it has taken off with such velocity. I think that's why some people may be a little bit holding back on this, because who knows where it's going to end. This whole process is moving so quickly that I don't know. I think we have. I started in the card industry by mistake. In 1990, I was working at Fordham, and I saw for the first time we could print on plastic. It was a black and white card. And previous to that, we were doing something that maybe you've seen, but you're relatively young. Did you ever have a college ID card that they took Polaroid pictures of, and you would sign sign your name to it, and you would have your Social Security number there, and they would glue a picture onto the card and then laminate it. Have you seen that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. So
yeah.
Fine. So we have that. Well, that's what we were doing then, and we could not get anybody to stand online long enough because the process was grueling. It took hours to get somebody through the thing, and you'd have to take multiple pictures with you needed it laminated. You'd have a whole process how you did this. We couldn't get anybody who would sign up for the meal plan, and there were only like 3 providers of technology that allowed students to use cards. And in 1990, I went to a security conference, and I saw them printing on plastic for the first time. So I volunteered to take over the carding system. And the priest who had it was the dean of students. He said to me, "You are out of your mind. This is the biggest problem that we have on campus." He said, "I just hate this part of it. If you want it, it's yours. God bless you." So anyway, that's how I got into this, and we had an offline system with we had 2 stripes on the card. We had a high corsivity junk stripe, they call it, where we put money on it, and we had the low core mag stripe that we used, and we only used it for food service. That was the only thing that we could use it for. And everything was offline, and I had a full-time person that would go around to the vending machines, to the copiers, it would take a person it was its entire job just going around at the end of each month, tallying up all this stuff and adding it to the general ledger or whatever we had by mid the following month. When you go and you look at something like that, you fast forward, 30 years. Back then, if I had a system, if I could envision a system I have right now, I would think that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. So I don't, so with that in perspective, I think we're doing quite well. As a matter of fact, I've said to people here that I never envisioned that we would have a system that could do so many things so well. We're not having any problems with this. When the new CIO came in, we have 160 some odd people in the IT department. And we have a lot of divisions in the IT department. And he did a survey. First thing he came in, he did a survey, and then he went and met the directors in each area to talk about it. And he said to me, yours is the only department that people didn't complain about. And that really made me feel good. But, but we're pretty good at what we do, and the things all work. So, so what would I do differently? I'm kind of happy. I'd like to change a few things we're doing, but I think we're doing quite well.
Good answer. Okay. Adam, if you're still there.
I am still here.
Did you have has anything piqued your interest as Bill's been talking?
No. I'm good actually. I think I just prior to the last question, I had a question. It was the one you asked, so which is again, what would you do if given free reign? Because that helps me to get a sense of sort of where the constraints are and what it is you'd like to achieve. It's what I imagined it would be, which is that what you've got is working now, and there's some better stuff on the horizon. Nobody's breathing down your neck to move in that direction, but we all see which way the wind is blowing, and how do you juggle? I'm just struck by all of the competing pressures. As you say, it's not just about the cards, and it's not just about the technology around the cards, but everything you do is going to have a ripple effect onto somebody else, and the IT team, is going to be engaged, and they've got their hands full just upgrading all of the classrooms. Yeah.
Let me throw something else in here. We have a identity management system that they're bringing in, and that's going to provision and deprovision people. One thing that we can't do with our systems right now is deprovision anybody. So we have it's still all manual processes. So something as simple as bringing alumni cards to the table and allowing them to have access because of the way the students are classified across all of the different software platforms that we have here. We've been talking about this for 11 years. We finally have a pathway to go that we're going to go live with this in January. This has been a monumental undertaking. I can't tell you how many dozens, I won't exaggerate and say hundreds, but it might actually be up there, how many dozens of meetings that we have had with senior staff, with the alumni group, with the marketing and communications group, with the student services, with IT, all different forms of IT, just to get that little process running.
That process being what? To provision alumni with cards?
Right.
Or, really?
To provision alumni, yeah, because
because it has a separate set of rules to it. It's not the same card that you would give to the student.
Well, yes and no. You see, there it is. What do you give them? They don't have the same levels of access, and how do you provision them? And and how do you say, all right, now this person who is a student who has been conferred a degree, they are no longer a student, but they are now an alum. Well, what if they come back and they take another course? What if they come and work for us? There's so many things that you never thought of. What is there? What permissions do they have to be on campus? What card trumps what card? It was mind-boggling. It sounds like a really simple process. It is not, and just something as simple as that has been extremely painful and time consuming, and we actually had a meeting on it yesterday, and this is the first time that we have a clear path of where we're going to be because we put so darn much time on it.
The other thing that I would ask about is because it is what you're in the midst of doing now. You said you are transitioning to CEOs. Say a little bit more for me about why you're making. You are transitioning, or you want to transition?
No. We what happened is because I know how the budgeting works here, I bought a whole pile of dual prox cards. So because I knew they were going to take my budget away, so I have a full year's supply of cards here. When we go and we reorder cards, I'm going to suggest that we start bringing in CEOs just with anticipation of someday, way off in the future, or real soon, that we can start using the mobile app because that won't work with our dual prox cards. What I've been told.
Okay, that was where I wanted you to connect the dots. The point about the move to CEOs is that's what's going to lay the foundation for for going mobile. Again, assuming you can get that request through, but that's your plan. Okay, I just wanted to have a clearer understanding of that.
And again, this I just mentioned the alumni card. The alumni card would not have gotten this much progress if it weren't for the CIO and the head of alumni getting together one day and saying, "Damn it, we got to do this. We're going to do it now." And that's the only thing that moved this thing. It's just languishing out there. So we could have the same situation where the CIO all of a sudden says, I've been to a conference where, the greatest universities in the world were there, and we're opening up a place in China. We have a campus in Paris, and he's looking at a worldwide application, as most schools are. And if he comes in here and says, okay, now we have to go and we have to redo everything we're doing to go mobile immediately, so we can provision these people with mobile cards, and that's the only platform we're going to be on. We've got to do something for the people that are here. We're not going to be able to say, okay, here it is. Now, all of a sudden, 15,000 cards don't work, and you're going to go to this mobile application. I don't know how we would do it. There's got to be some way of transitioning this entire process through, and I think so that's why I said going to suggest to use COS in the future, because we're not gaining a whole heck of a lot with the dual procs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
It's really interesting. Do you, if you have to change credentials, does the student, faculty, alumni have to come into the card office?
Our card office can't fit more than about 60 people. And it's a very painful process that when people come to get their cards. When I first got here, people would be online for several hours to get a card. Right now, we have one 20-minute line in the fall. We pre-print all of our cards. We've gotten the software in to capture the photos online. That works wonderfully. We give the cards out to the dorms. We distribute them external to the department. If we had to go and redo everybody, we wouldn't have them come into the office, because we've already got their photos on file. But then there's a lot of other things would play into this, because you have people whose photos are quite old. You'd want a current photo. We have people who now have preferred first names and now have preferred last names. How do we do that? If a person says, well, all right, now if you're going to give me a new card and I don't have to pay for it, now instead of being BillCarty, I want to be Vivian Carty, or Skip Carty, or whatever. And so there would be a lot of things that would play into that as well. We would have to go and say, okay, we're going to recard the whole university. Now, here's the changes you have to make. They have to be done by such and such a date. And then we would have to figure out a way on how we're going to take the old card away from them and give them a new card, because if we all of a sudden turn off their old cards, they can't get onto campus. So that's not good. We don't want to have multiple credentials. We don't want to have new and old. It's a big process. And it would be really interesting to see. I know people have done it, but I'll also say I've gone. We have of NACU, correct?
Of who?
NACU, National Association of College Card Users.
Oh no.
Okay, well that's an organization that's 31 years old right now. I happen to be at their first meeting, first 3-4 meetings actually, and there's about 700-800 schools that are in this, in this organization, and we have a yearly meeting that we go to, and they're always looking for proposals and people giving presentations and other things, and a lot of times when these people tell us how successful they've been in putting in, in recarding a university, in putting in a loyalty program to their off-campus program, in doing a lot of things that, their mobile apps. When you hear them talk or you ask them questions, you realize that, well, this works just on a very limited basis. The University of Arizona has a mobile application for security. The CIO went out there and he spoke to them, and he was really impressed. And he said that lit the fire under him when he initially got here. I spoke to those guys. I happen to know some of the people there, and they have one building. I think they have less than 50 people on it as an experiment, and they only have 8 readers, which is what one of the folks told me. The guy over at NYU came from the University of Arizona, and he said it was a system that was put on the shelf because it was too expensive, and they didn't have any funding for the thing. So when you talk to them on one side, they say, oh yeah, we have this mobile application, but it's only really limited. It doesn't really work, So that's the thought I have about a lot of these things, that everybody says they have something that works, but it maybe doesn't, or it's just limited to their little application. I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of got off on a tangent there. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay because you are in the trenches of your campus, and every campus is different. And I think that's what I'm learning in this process is that every single one of the subjects that I interview knows their environment better than I ever will, or HID will, or anybody else. And you are finding the solutions that work. And I think most of the time you figured out a way to make it work for the most people in the best manner. But there's, of course, better ways of doing it. It's just there's so many challenges to getting there, and that's what I think is recurring in all of these conversations. Is that if I could have it my way, I would do X, Y, and Z, and there'll be no barriers to that. But you guys face barriers, whether it's cost, whether it's people, manpower. So we get it.
You really hit it right on the head there, because what we have is constant workarounds to things that we have here as necessity. So that's what we have to do, and everyone is so different. That's why, when sometimes you go to these talks at the yearly, at the yearly conference, and like, how can they get away doing that? That would never work at my place, or Jay. It's really, I've yet to have like a light bulb go on and say, boy, I could make that work at my place. It works for them, but it doesn't work for us. The 2 VPs here gave a presentation 3 years ago in San Francisco on how we switched over from New Visions to TouchNet as our provider of for food service and all carding applications. And we ran both. We brought this thing up in October. Now, I think that I don't think it was a good idea to do. We ran parallel systems. We wanted to do it in the summer, but we didn't have time to do it. And we were told by the CIO, you will do it right now. So we did it. And they gave a presentation, and people were incredulous because they said, why would you do that? You have the summer to do it. You have the spring when you have a break. Why would you bring a system up and run 2 systems side by side with all the manpower and expense to make 2 things run at the same time, just so you could say you have this system up and running? Because that's what we wanted to say. We transitioned to a new system. So that, I think there's a lot of it. You kind of hit it on the head, though. It works. It worked for us. I have not heard of anybody else doing that. We're the only one that I know of. And there's a lot of things. You listen to these schools, like Rutgers had a really great loyalty application that they did, and they said, oh, we did this, and this. And I said, how'd you get the funding? Well, it turns out they own they run their own food service program, and they can do anything they want with the money that they get from the food service. So they had they could do something that we could never do. Our food services is out with Chartwell's. So we have a partner in that they would have to agree to provide the manpower and everything else. Rutgers have the control over it. We don't. So, there's so many things. As you said, it works for the place you're in. It works in your environment.
Mm-hmm. I have another question kind of along those lines, but also reaching back to the CEO's conversation. It seems like that is, as far as like incremental changes that you have some influence over, purchasing cards that are future proof. What what are some other things that you personally, that would be just small incremental things that you would want to do, that maybe if you were in a conversation you would bring up and say, hey, we should think about doing X?
Well, we're putting up a new dorm right now, and I think it's going to be about a 700-bed dorm, and they're specing dual technology readers that they can. So we are moving so that we can go to to mobile if needed at that dorm, but we have 5 other dorms. So so they're making an attempt on it. It's just that we're not going to be, the budgeting is so tight here because we're really under the gun. The government's taken away all the funding, and the students are paying more and more for the education. Everybody's fighting over the same dollars. So I have very little control over what I buy. I buy the supplies for my department. The CO's cards are actually a little bit cheaper than the dual prox cards. So, I mean, not much. You're talking, 15 cents a card or something like that. But, hey, that's fine. I'll take it. And it performs the same function that the dual prox performs. And we can cycle out 80%, 90% of our cards in 4 years. So why not do it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I think what you were saying there was that the new dorm is going to get upgraded readers that can manage that or future-proof as well. Is that
right? But they're still going to use the old technology, to my knowledge.
Yeah, they'll use the old. Yeah, and so that would be one incremental change to that you would like to see eventually.
Yeah. And I also. And actually, if for any, one of the things that struck me going to the conference, Duke University has a $250,000 a year budget for hardware replacement. And they're on some sort of a cycle that they replace their hardware. We don't have a budget for that. We replace as needed. So so here's something like if I think if our guy went to the CIO and said, I need an extra $250,000 each year to buy new locks, for so that we can have all new locks in 8 years, on this, or in 6 years, 5 years. I think the question would be, well, what's that going to buy us? So and because everybody has a need for an upgrade of technology, because we keep getting new software platforms constantly. There's tons of stuff out there that everybody wants to have, and I just don't see the money available for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Well, I don't think I have anything else asked, Bill.
Okay, well, I hope I gave you some information. That's from the card services side of it. Like I said, I think we want to run a good program here. We're not having any problems. There are things I'd like to change, but there's no money for them, and I've been told that already. So, it's kind of not really business as usual. We keep doing things a little bit better all the time. We've automated things to such a point that we're kind of on cruise control, and it feels good because when we have people come in, we know we're not going to have lines. We're getting cooperation from other departments because we built trust with them. The enrollment services department now fronts us and says, okay, one of the first things you have to do is send in your photo for your ID card because you can't get on campus without the card. And when your card is pre-printed for you, it's going to be encoded, and you're going to be able to do everything on campus. You're not going to have to wait to get in the library. You're not going to have to stand online for anything. You're going to have the preferred picture you want. You're going to have the name you want on the card, everything else. And they all of a sudden they've run with this thing, which is tremendous. Previously, we had to send emails out to students, say, please send us a picture, and let us know who you are, so we can put this in. We have an automated system that we batch print everything. We can. 11 years ago, 12 years ago, when I first got here, for us to print the cards, when we finally got in I guess we got about 2,000 cards we had to print. We had 83 keystrokes on every single card. It took 2 people standing at machines 3 weeks to do the cards. Right now, we pre-print close to 3,000 cards, and we can do it in 3 days. So it's really, and that's even capturing more information, because we're pre-printing them and we're giving them out to the dorms and doing everything. So we keep getting better at what we're doing. So I'm really pretty pleased with the operation we have.
Great. Good. Okay.
All righty.
Yeah.